Right. Welcome to the decision session for the Executive Member for Housing and Safer Neighbourhoods. I'm Councillor Denise Craghill, and it's the 18th of March 2021. As you can see, there's just myself and Michael Jones here on this call, who is the interim Assistant Director of Housing. The first item is declarations of interest. I have no declarations of interest. Secondly, we have the minutes, and we have the minutes of both the meeting on the 17th of December 2020 and from the meeting on the 12th of January 2021. And I'm happy to approve those minutes as an accurate record, and we'll sign them in due course one day when we have a big pile of minutes to sign. As far as I'm aware, we have, moving on to item 3, we have no speakers under public participation. So we can move on to item 4 on the agenda, which is our update on the Housing Energy Retrofit programme. So I'm going to hand over to Michael Jones just to give us a bit of a summary of that paper, please, Michael.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Craghill. So the paper before you today is an update on the Housing Energy Retrofit programme. That was approved by Executive in December 2020. The paper outlines 4 key work streams that are progressing as part of that programme. So I'm just going to talk you through a brief summary of where we're up to on those 4 work streams, which are included in the report. So the first one is the Council House Retrofit programme, which is being supported by WICA. And in December, Executive approved a £1 million budget to bring around 60 poorly performing energy inefficient council homes up to an EPC C rating using a fabric first approach. Since the Executive approval in December, we've agreed terms of the support from WICA, and we've put a timetable together for the project, which is shown in paragraph 31. This shows that we'll be undertaking property surveys on empty void properties in the next few weeks. We'll be then undertaking design and engagement work with residents who could benefit from these works. The timetable highlights that the improvement works are due to commence in June this year. The second project is LAD 1B, which is grant funding from BEIS. We've been successful in receiving £535,000 as a consortium lead with 3 other local authorities in the area. York's portion of this money will be utilised to install room in the roof insulation at around 40 private homes in the Clifton area. So they could be private rented sector or homeowners. And this grant funding can be utilised where residents are on a low income and their home is energy inefficient. There'll also be an opportunity to utilise some grant funding to offer free loft and draft proofing for residents in other parts of the city. The grant funding requires these works to be complete by September this year. And the grant funding also allows us to temporarily increase our staffing resource in order to support this grant allocation. The third project is linked to the one I've just outlined. So again, it's a grant funding opportunity, this time called LAD 2. There's an application deadline of next week, and this report is seeking your support to submit a grant application, with York being the lead consortium again for 3 other local authorities of 2.9 million, with York's expected share of this to be about 1.1 million. As part of this grant application, we've been working with our Better Homes contractor to understand the capacity within the system for further housing energy improvement works in the city. As such, our intended use of the grant is to expand our room in the roof insulation and other insulation works in the city. We are proposing to utilise around £300,000 of this money towards the fabric improvement works, which is part of the first project that I described. This would reduce the need for us to spend the full £1 million budget that we've allocated to this project. And therefore we're proposing that we utilise some of that money alongside the LAD2 grant to install solar PVs on around 50 other council houses in the city. So this would deliver more energy improvement works than we originally outlined in December, and sticking within our existing £1 million budget allocated for these works. The final work stream is the creation of a retrofit strategy to improve energy efficiency across housing of all tenures in the city. Paragraph 36 of the report proposes a scope for what will be within this strategy document. And it's got 5 key objectives, which is to guide investment, support the supply chain, support investment in upskilling and training, take a citywide approach, so considering our role in improving the energy performance of homes in the private sector as well as council homes, and providing a strong footing for future grant funding opportunities. So finally, the executive member is asked to consider the recommendations proposed in paragraph 5. There's 3 recommendations there, but I would like to propose a rewording of recommendation 2 in order to provide greater clarity on what we will use the LAD2 funding for. So the proposed wording for recommendation 2 is to support the submission of a grant application under the Local Authority Delivery 2 scheme. Approve the utilisation of this funding to support number 1, Council Housing Energy Retrofit Programme Phase 1 works as approved by Executive in December 2020. Number 2, an expansion of room in the roof and other insulation works being delivered as part of the LAD 1B project. And 3, to install solar PV on council homes utilising some of the remaining funds within the £1 million allocated budget alongside LAD2 funding. With delegated authority to the executive member of Housing and Safer Neighbourhoods to approve any reallocation of this grant funding in line with the capacity of the supply chain and the grant funding terms. The reason we are seeking some further delegated authority is that in terms of the supply chain, it's quite a fast-moving piece of work, and we may need to tweak how we are proposing to use the grant funding depending what capacity there is within the supply chain throughout the year. So I hope that's clear. Very happy to take any questions on any aspect of that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that last bit is clear, thank you, although it's slightly complicated. You have shared a draft of that, so I think I do understand what that's about. I'll comment again on that slightly briefly in a moment. Thank you for that. I will ask you just one question. You mentioned fairly early on about engaging with residents as we get started on these programs on the ground, and they are obviously residents are going to be an absolutely crucial part of making all of these programs successful for retrofit. I just wondered if you could say just a little bit more about how we're going to engage with residents and how we're going to make sure we learn as much as we can about all the practicalities of actually getting retrofit done, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. So as per the December executive approval. We've identified a number of archetypes, so certain house types within the city council housing, where they are both energy inefficient and quite difficult to treat. So the usual works around cavity and loft insulation is much more difficult to achieve. So we've identified a long list of properties that fit within those archetypes. Turner and Townsend will be undertaking some surveys of some of those properties in the coming weeks, and that will inform design work. So once the design work has been undertaken in terms of knowing what works are proposed to improve the energy efficiency, we will then have the information to be able to engage effectively with the residents. Clearly, if you speak to any residents about energy retrofit works, one of their first questions are going to be, what does it involve? How long will it take? And it's not until we've done that design work that we will be able to answer those questions. In terms of the resident engagement work, it's very much going to be a opportunity for residents to put themselves forward for these works. Clearly, we will be promoting it, and we'll be promoting the benefits that these works can do, both in terms of the environmental impact, but also reduction in utility bills for those residents. So there'll be some initial work to explain why we think it's a good idea, and then those residents that are interested, there'll be then opportunities for more detailed conversations, such as how long will it take, what level of disruption will there be, and when the works might be taking place. So that's a proposal around resident engagement. In terms of how we are going to learn lessons and measure success, so the proposal is that there will be a kind of baseline measure taken before the works are undertaken in terms of the energy performance of the house, and then there'll be a post-completion of the works assessment to see how effective they have been. Full details of what that will look like will be developed over the coming weeks, and it may be different levels and different measures depending on the types of work that are undertaken. But clearly that can include both quantitative data and also feedback from residents in terms of their experiences of both the works and living in a house where the energy efficiency is being improved. And clearly that learning will form part of the retrofit strategy and future investment decisions.
Right, thank you for that. I think that obviously is going to be important, and that sounds very positive. So overall, just a few comments. I do very much welcome this paper. I think it shows that we're really starting to make progress on this issue with practical plans and timescales in place. It's great to hear that we are progressing with the first phase of our council housing retrofit programme, with the schedule that Michael mentioned. You mentioned, Michael, on paragraph 31, and the work's expected to start in the summer. It's really good that we've been successful in getting the £500,000 funding for improving the insulation of council homes, not council homes, private homes, around 40 private homes, rooms in roofs in the Clifton area. And that we're also bidding for well over £1 million of further funding to add to that work. I think that's really positive. I think what jumps out from the paper for me is that we are probably right to take the approach we are of getting started with some retrofit projects on the ground. The more that we can do of this, the more we learn about the whole process, improve our skills, start to build relationships with local companies, and put ourselves in a good position to get further funding. And we can see from this paper that we're already starting to use one project to complement another project and to start building on that. Obviously, developing a retrofit strategy for the city as well as the council is a big task, but also an absolutely crucial one if we're to meet our climate change targets. And that obviously brings us the opportunity to reduce energy bills, tackle fuel poverty in the city, and improve the health and well-being of our residents. So on that point, I'm very happy to support the suggested scope in the paper for the development of that strategy. And I would also like to encourage residents to take up the offer of the home improvements when they are invited to do so. They will be a big benefit to their own comfort and to their own purses, and it will also put them at the forefront of making the city a more sustainable place. So I do encourage residents to respond positively. So in terms of the options and recommendations, I'm very happy to support the recommendation at paragraph 5, the recommendations at paragraph 5 on page 10 of the report. And that obviously means in terms of the options you've got later on that we are supporting option 1 to proceed with the LAD 2 bid. And I am also happy to support the amended point 2 as you read out. So the amended wording for point 2 at paragraph 5. I'm very happy with that to ensure that we maximise the use of the LAD 2 grant if we are successful in getting that, and so that will include supporting our existing council house retrofit programme and installing additional solar panels on additional properties. And I'm happy with the delegation, as I think it's really important that we can respond quickly to the changes that are happening almost from day to day in how government in some of the details of the grants programs. So I'm happy with all of that. Louise, do we need to read out that wording again, or are you happy that you have that for the minutes?
I have it for the minutes, so I'm happy. Yeah.
Okay, so I think that's the decision on that item, and we don't have any other business, so we can conclude the meeting. Thank you very much.